Phenomena.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Phenomena.
welcome to Hypnotic Happenings, where hypnosis happens. Duh. And now help me in welcoming your co-host, award-winning hypnotist, Dan Candell, and Michael DeShalit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hypnotic Happenings, episode number 2. The second time we're doing Hypnotic Happenings webinar. It's going to be awesome. Oh, by the way, Hypnotic Happenings, it's where hypnosis happens. We've got a special guest today, and I'll introduce him in just one moment, but I first must give out our legal disclaimer that no animals were harmed in the making of this video, but parts of this video were shot on location where peanuts are present. So if you have a peanut allergy, only watch the parts where I'm not talking. I might be munching on peanuts throughout this video. So, but before I get too far into this, let me just introduce my co-host and co-founder of Hypnotic Happenings, the incomparable, the amazing, the delightful, the lovely, the delirious Dan Candell.
I thought you were going to say the incompetent, which either way, hey, you know, Mike, you have nuts in your mouth, and I'm just going to leave it right there. You and I are both in Vegas, actually. And our guest today, he had asked, hey, Dan, why aren't you standing over Mike? We originally were going to do this with Mike and I together in the same room. But then I woke up late. I'm actually still in my hotel room. And that sliding door back there is actually the door to my bathroom. So hopefully that's not a metaphor for that this is going down the crapper.
And Dan, tell everybody, since this is only our second episode, tell everybody why we decided to put together Hypnotic Happenings.
So Hypnotic Happenings, where hypnosis happens, is kind of our motto. And what we wanted to do is put together a video series of like-minded hypnotists where it can be kind of lonely on our island sometimes. And as hypnotists, we sometimes have the weird, the wacky, the unusual, the wild, the crazy, or the just things we need to talk about as a community. And Michael and I were on the phone one time and thinking about a need that wasn't being filled in the hypnosis community. And this was it. So Hypnotic Happenings gives people an outlet to talk through stories or weird or wacky, wild or unusual things that have happened to them. And just so you know, there are learning moments here, because then the people that we have on talk about how they overcame this, kind of what they learned from it or how they navigated through it. So this is just a second episode, but just so you know, we have a lot planned for you in this episode and in each episode moving forward. We have so much planned for you, and we're excited to get going in today's guest. So Michael DeShalit, do you want to introduce today's guest?
You know what? I'm so excited. We got a ton of applications, by the way, and if you want to apply to be a speaker on one of our subsequent webinars, go to hypnotichappenings.com, and there's a couple buttons there. There's a button for you to join our Facebook group, Hypnotic Happenings on Facebook. There is also a button for you to submit an application to be a speaker on one of our webinars. And so we got a ton of applications in, and there's so many great ones to choose from. So we're really just pulling them randomly out of a hat. And our first speaker was Scott Sandlin from Hypnothoughts. And this webinar, I will tell you, is going to be amazing. I just hearing the story made me kind of just pucker up a little bit. And so without further ado, let me introduce our special guest. He is, I believe, the chapter president of the New England NGH chapter. I think I said that right. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. He's also just an amazing hypnotherapist. His wife is also a hypnotherapist, and he is a master NLP practitioner, as well as many other things. So please help me welcome our special guest, Kevin Martin.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael. I am so excited to be on here. First of all, Hypnotic Happenings, I thought when Dan sent me the email was Halloween Happenings, and I thought I had to wear a mask. So, but I get it. No, I'm really excited. Yes, it's not the New England chapter, but the NGH Commonwealth chapter. We're more or less
Commonwealth chapter. Yep, my apologies.
Yeah.
Commonwealth chapter.
Yes, the Massachusetts chapter. I'm also the organizer of the largest NLP and hypnosis meetup in New England, and I've been doing this for, well, not this particular webinar. No, I've been working with hypnosis and NLP for 15 years about now, and I just love it. I have a passion for it, and I want to thank you for having me here. I was thrilled when I got the reply that, I was thrilled when I heard that you guys were doing this, because I love talking about the things that I do.
And I know today's story is about a particular client, and we all have these weird, sort of unusual clients at times, here and again. It seems as though there's more, I think, up in the New England area than any other area. I don't know what it is. It's like a vortex for weirdness or something. Dan has crazy clients. I have like fairly normal clients for the most part. But I want to mention this too, though, that at no time are we going to release any names of our clients at all. So we keep their anonymity anonymous. We want to make sure that we're not doing that. So don't release any names. And yeah, we're not going to make you wear a blindfold or anything. We will camouflage your voice later to sound like that robot sounding thing, though. But so tell us, though, you have an amazing client to tell us about, or an amazing experience. So go ahead and just jump right into that.
And it looks like Kevin froze.
He looks like, yeah,
happy smiley face.
Yeah.
He's smiling. I mean, it's a good face to freeze on, isn't it? He's
So we'll just keep talking, and
he's happy.
Looks like Kevin went away.
Kevin went away, but Kevin will be back.
Kevin will be back.
He's going to join us again.
Probably went down the street chasing after that client or something. I don't know what the hell's going on over there.
I think this is a good opportunity to talk about also, Mike. Kevin is also a very good stage hypnotist.
Yes.
And he does, I think, between like only 5 or 10 shows a year, but he does, the way he does them is very, very unique. He has a very wonderful, gentle style approach. And you see, as Kevin's logging back on here, Kevin is just such an amazing, gentle guy. You just want to give him a hug. Kevin, we were just talking about how much we want to hug you. Welcome back.
Well, we did sort of talk a little bit more about your accolades. You're a stage hypnotist. And,
okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know what happened. Great. I don't know what happened. The internet just kind of went off. So, yes. Well, why don't I get right into it? I do a lot of workshops, and I was doing this one workshop on hypnosis and hypnotic phenomena, and I had this one volunteer, and every time I bring him down and get deep enough for arm catalepsy, and I bring his arm up, he's shaking in his chair. He just, wobble in his chair, and after it happens twice, I said, well, what's going on? Because he came out, I said, what's going on? He said, well, it's something that happens to me when I meditate. And I questioned this in a 1.5-hour workshop. I'm not going to take him to therapy, so I volunteered. I said, if you want to come in, we can do some work on this. So he came into my office, and I sit him down on this lazy boy lounger, this beautiful big leather lounger that I used to have in my office that I shared with the infamous Jerry Valley. And so he was lying there, and I started to do some discovery with the subconscious mind, where this comes from. I believe I was using parts therapy. Michael, that's parts with a P.
Parts with a P. Parts with a P.
Not farts therapy.
Not farts therapy.
Kevin, I want to go back because you broke up a little bit when you were talking. What kind of spasms did this gentleman have?
Well, the spasms seemed directly below at the rectum. So it would be like, whoa! He'd be jumping up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So farts therapy wouldn't be that far off then. If
Farts therapy.
No.
Farts therapy.
Farts therapy. I don't believe we engaged in that, but yes, it wouldn't be that far off.
Okay. So parts. P-A-R-T-S.
Parts therapy.
P-A-R-T-S. Yes.
Parts.
Yes, and the part just happened to be located in that area. When you're trying to do parts therapy and you're talking to that part, I didn't think about it at the time, but that is a little awkward.
Yeah, a little bit. It could be. It definitely could be.
Yeah. What was the end result? I mean, that's what we
Must
Let
have
me
been
tell you what happened.
Did you fix him? Did you fix him, or did you wreck him?
Oh, I knew this was going to be a funny time.
Yeah, you know.
Let me tell you what happened. As I started to question him, as we started to get a little deeper and more at a subconscious level, he started to shake more, and he started to ride and back and forth in that chair, and he was kind of lying back, but he was just shaking so much. I thought I was doing an exorcism. I almost was going to take out my cross and say, "Hey, get out of there." Actually, it looked dangerous enough where it looked like he was being hurt. And so I asked him. I stopped it. I said, "Take a deep breath." He stopped. He calmed down. He's like, I said, "Is this hurting you at all?" He says, "No, keep on going." I said, "All right, let's do it."
As one does.
I got it.
Keep on trucking. Keep on trucking. Yep.
It was 5 to 10 minutes. He'd answer my questions, and it just really got more and more physical on his part, and he almost. It was so much of spasming. He almost flew out of the chair, but fortunately for me and him, he did not. And finally, we got to. I can't remember what the actual core was, but we got to it, and it's just he laid back, and that was it. It was an interesting thing. To this day, I wish I had that. I wish I had that tape, because you would have sworn it was an exorcism, and probably on the tape there would have been some really deep voices on there that I didn't hear when I was there.
And Kevin, when you do parts therapies or parts integration, and you were doing it with this particular person, what parts specifically were you working with? Were you saying, "I want to talk to the part of you that has this rectal spasm," or
exactly? I had to talk to the part that was responsible for the spasm in the rectum. And that part did not give me a name. It was probably too embarrassed.
Yeah.
But it started to talk to me. And it wasn't dirty talk at all.
This is good, because it shows that, like you said, he didn't come up with a name for the part, maybe because it would have been too embarrassing. And that brings up a perfect valid point. One of the myths and misconceptions that people have of hypnosis, some I call them muggles, people who are non-hypnotists. One of the myths and misconceptions is that people are going to divulge secrets or say something that's embarrassing. I mean, even in a one-on-one setting where people feel completely comfortable and it's a comfortable scenario, people don't, they still don't reveal things that they don't want to reveal or that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, that does happen. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I had a question also too, and a serious question at this time too. Is that, did he give you any indication? And I know we're not doctors. We don't diagnose or cure or treat anything. But did he give you any indication that he had like irritable bowel syndrome or hemorrhoids or something that would cause that spasming or anything like that? Did he give any indication of that? Or
no, he did not. He did not give me any indication of any physical problem. He just told me that he has experienced this when meditating. So when he is in an alpha state or lower, that's when this part starts to come alive.
Interesting.
So
Was he originally seeing you for? I know you mentioned it was like a group demonstration.
Oh, he was just a volunteer in a group workshop that I did. We were only doing arm catalepsy, and it turned out that his arm wouldn't stay stiff, but another part of his body was stiffening up. Yes.
Got it.
Interesting. Huh.
Catalepsy of the rectum,
Yeah.
Stuff happens. I mean,
Yeah.
Shit happens.
I don't know if that would be a good conference demo.
Okay.
you know, but here's the thing though. At conferences, you never know what you're going to get, and when you're doing demos, you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes it's good to have a challenge where something kind of weird or wacky like that happens, and you never know. Kevin, I don't know if you probably experience this, where you'll get a wave of clients where all within 1 or 2 weeks they'll all have similar issues or problems. Can you imagine that you became the rectal hypnotist? That might be a new market for you.
Yeah.
Rectal hypnotist. I can see that. I can. Well, no, I don't. Matter of fact, that's an image I don't want to have.
Yeah, you probably don't want to have that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
By the way, Dan, when you were talking earlier about how some clients, even though they know that this is a secure and safe environment, they still don't want to share information. It's probably because they think that like 5 or 6 years later, you're going to be in a webinar talking about them.
Yeah.
That could be it. That
could be
maybe
it.
that's it. Maybe that's it. So what was the final resolution? I mean, did he feel some relief after that, or was it, what was the final resolution here?
We got to the core, which, if I remember right, was very mundane. And that's the interesting thing. You can have some of the most interesting symptoms, and you go to the root cause, and sometimes it's something extremely mundane. Maybe that's why it was doing something so, it was trying to make itself really outstanding and unique. I don't know. But yeah, and the symptoms alleviate themselves.
There's so many different ways to do parts integration, and I call it parts integration, and other people call it parts therapy. Either one, it's the same thing. And Kevin, Michael, and I were teaching a training in September, clinical hypnosis training, and we both have different ways of doing parts where I'll actually reach forward and say, okay, we're taking out this part of you. If you could talk to this part, what would you tell it? And then now we take out this part. What's the positive underlying intention? Mike has this awesome way where he was teaching our class to imagine that all of your parts are around the table and which parts are coming to the table. And there was a therapist in the group, and she said, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do this with my clients because I'd love to see what some of their parts are. And she was so excited about this. What is a way that you do parts, or that you were doing parts with this person? Was it a straightforward way? Was it an abstract way? What was the way that you were?
Well, actually, I do parts in several ways. I'm glad you brought this up because there are many forms of parts. And Michael, sounds like you do what psychotherapists do when they do the family parts system, when they have the parts around the table.
Yeah,
and
kind of, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little bit like
not
that.
a psychotherapist. I'm just psycho.
And
I've heard that from Dan. Yes.
Yes, we've heard that from a lot of people.
Anyway, I was at the time, I believe I was using core transformation. Core transformation is a parts therapy that was created by Connie Ray Andreas, and it's I call it an eloquent parts therapy. You find out where the part lives. You get into the last moment that you had this problem, and where is it most intense at the body, and then you invite it in, and you look for its core states. So it's not too much different than standard parts integration, where you're chunking up. I mean that in a linguistic way, by the way. I knew something was stirring in your head, Michael. Anyway, you're checking up to find a state of mind. And when you find that state of mind, you have the part step into it, and it realizes that, hey, it didn't have to go through all this crap. I don't want to bring your rating up above PG. So,
thank you.
Oh, that already happened in episode 1. So yeah. We passed PG without even stopping to say hi.
I've heard him when he gets passionate. Yes. Uh, anyway, and then a part realizes it doesn't have to do all that stuff, and it integrates, and you grow it up. I didn't grow this one up. It felt weird.
Yeah.
But what you said is so true, though. I mean, sometimes, you know, we kind of, in our mind as the hypnotist, we kind of think, oh my gosh, this is going to be weird. There's going to be some crazy weird cause to this. You know, what caused this person to have this issue? But usually, you're right. You'll find that it is usually something just mundane. It's usually just a result or a byproduct of stress that the person is having, and they're not sure how to cope with it, or their body's not sure how to cope with it. And so, you know, it just happens a certain way. And I do want to kind of answer your comment about how I do parts therapy. And I guess a little bit, I don't know what psychotherapists do. So maybe if it is, it's by mistake if it is, or by, you know, just by luck if it is. I'll do it several different ways, but what I typically try to do is I try to get the client involved on this. You know, before we go into hypnosis, I let them know that I'm going to be using something called parts integration or parts therapy, whatever you want to call it. A big shout out, by the way, to where I learned a lot about this was Roy Hunter. Roy Hunter's book, The Art of Hypnotherapy and the Art of Hypnosis. He talks about Tibet's a lot. And so a big shout out to Roy Hunter because he really gave me a great education on this whole parts therapy thing. And again, just for our viewers, so we're clear on this, when we say parts therapy, we're not practicing therapy. We're a hypnotist. We're a professional hypnotist or consulting hypnotist. We're not doing therapy work. So just to be clear on that, but you know, just the semantics, what we call it. But I'll get the client involved on this and say, hey, look, you know, how can we bring all your parts together? And a lot of times they'll say, well, like, you know, I'm the president of my company. What if I called a meeting? Or, you know, I can see them all sitting in church and me being the person at the lectern. And so they're all sitting in the pews. And so I kind of let them be an active participant in that. So there's a precursor to the session. Right. So that way it's in their terminology, their terms. They feel the most comfortable doing it that way. And then they can gather the parts however they want. And sometimes you do get unusual things. You do get names. They do name their parts. And, you know, I'm glad your client didn't really name that part.
Yeah. I'm glad that
Winky, or I mean, what would you call it? Winky, or I don't know.
I don't know what it would have been, but yeah, I would have been surprised. I'm glad, you know, parts therapy does come in a lot of different ways. I do mine not under formal hypnosis, traditional hypnosis. I just start in and explain what I'm going to do and say, okay, where's it most intense in your body, and start talking to it. You know, on a more serious note, anyone who's going to do parts integration and parts therapy, one of the most important things I've found is to thank the part for being there in the first place. And you don't always want to. I mean, who's going to want to thank a part that's having you jump in your seat, right? Who's going to want to thank a part that's having you binge or do some even more severe things? But all the parts have a positive intention at its origin, and parts work so much better when they think they're being thanked and their host is grateful for them being there. Should I say? It's interesting. It's fun stuff. But when you talk, I hope you don't mind, but I had another incident that was kind of interesting. I believe I was still doing parts, and I was working with this woman who had a physiological issue, and her whole left side or right side would go numb when she gets stressed. And as I'm doing the work, all of a sudden she says, "Oh, you just brought back something. You just brought back something I got rid of a year ago with EFT." And I looked at her and I said, "That is so cool, isn't it?" She almost loved me.
You're like, that's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I said, no, that just means we're getting closer to solving this. A part, and you guys know this, and most of the audience would know this, but a part really gets intense when it thinks it's going to go away.
Yeah.
And that was one of the parts of this guy who was having a fit or being possessed right in front of me. that was a part of him that really was acting up because it thought it was going away. So, and Dan mentioned integration, and that's what when I explain this to my clients, I make sure I talk about it, because we don't abolish the part. We don't get rid of the part. It integrates. It becomes one with us.
Right.
And that way that part feels okay with that, it doesn't think it's going to get killed. I know this sounds really weird, but and with the two of you, even though Mike has this glare in his eyes, I think you guys understand it. I think most of the audience will understand that as well.
Well, and that brings up an excellent point. And I had that glare on my face because you know what? You brought up two great points. Number one is actually the second point you just brought up is we don't eliminate the part. And the first point you brought up is that every part has a purpose. Every part has an intent. And I think that's so true that, because clients will come to us all the time, and I know you guys get this too. They go, can you make me, forget about a part of my life? Or can you make that part of me just shut up? I'm tired of hearing that part of me. But, it's not about making that part shut up or be quiet. It's about giving that part the purpose and the intent to speak at the right time.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of that integration that you're talking about is you really have to make them integrate, make them work together, or help them to, at least. I don't know that we can make anybody or make anything do anything, but the client certainly can. They're in charge of their parts, and that's and all the parts add up to the whole. So if they can break it down into that part and talk to that part and get that part to do exactly what they would like it to do, define its job description, as I often say when I'm doing this with the client. Every part is a job description. Make that clear, because sometimes, you work in a job for a little bit of time and you forget about what your job description was. You need to have some clarity of that, or your job description gets redefined.
And Kevin, in these situations, would you say it's okay to lead the client sometimes? Because there was a client I had who had misophonia and was referred to me by his therapist. And he said, I just want to kill off that part. And he got into this really vicious, murderous type of, I just want to kill this part. I want to slay it. I want to make it bloody and slash it all. And I'm like, holy crap. And do you find sometimes there's some leading with the client there to say, it's okay to keep this part, but we integrate it, we make it serve a different purpose?
All the time. I find that's what I would need to do. If I had that client, I would reframe them so much to get away from that I want to kill this part, because that just makes it harder to work with that part. And I always, when I'm talking to my clients and I'm talking to my students, I say that when the conscious and the subconscious butt heads, the subconscious is going to win all the time.
Absolutely.
And so that's a bit of a butt head. I want to kill this part. No. It's like Michael said, it's all about integrating. And so you have to lead the client. You do have to lead the client in those cases to make sure that this integration does happen, and the part just doesn't go haywire and say, hey, you want to kill me? Let me show you.
Right.
A good friend of mine from way back in the days before, she wasn't even a hypnotist, but she was doing this process of parts integration, and she was working with this one person who the part was here. And parts integration, as you guys know, for metaphor's sake, integrate to the heart. Right, that's just kind of the center of the body, and you just bring it into the heart. So she was bringing it down into the heart. Well, when the part got to the throat, it just stayed there. And as it was staying there, she was watching the guy, and his lips were turning blue. He was no longer breathing. The part says, I ain't going there. He says, if I go there, you're going to kill me. She had to bring the part back up here. He started breathing again. And then she had to mediate with that part and get that part to know that it was a good thing for it. It's not going to go anywhere. But that's an example of the part of us that we're trying to get rid of. If we're trying to get rid of it, like with those words, it's going to act up. It's going to do things. And sometimes it's going to do things that are harmful. That was an extreme case. I've never had one other than my rectal guy.
Well, that just goes to show you how powerful parts integration can be, even if you're not using hypnosis. Because in this case, you said this individual that was using this wasn't a hypnotist, and it can be very beneficial. Even doing it consciously out of hypnosis can sometimes lead to that subconscious intention. And what's the underlying benefit or the positive intention this part has? Some clients, I'd say probably 30 or 40% of my clients will jump right to, safety and security. It wants to keep me safe, or it wants to protect me, or it wants to make me feel loved or accepted in some way. And then that part goes haywire. And sometimes we can go in with the control room and we can control those parts a little bit, tweak them, and then put them back and see what's different.
Right.
There's several different ways to do parts integration or parts therapy, and that's where the visual squash, integrating parts as well, all these techniques. And Kevin, we mentioned you have one of the biggest NLP meetup groups. Is it in New England? Or
it's biggest in New England for the 5 states. Is it 5 states? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big one in New York City, of course, New York City. But yeah, I've got the largest one in New England. We got over 600 members. We've been around for 15 years. Yeah. And I do workshops twice a month.
Awesome. And how do people find out more about your workshops and more about your NLP meetup group?
Okay. The meetup group can be found at meetup.com/NLP-100. I don't know where the 100 came from, but it's pretty simple and easy to do. Or if you just get on Meetup and look up NLP, you'll probably find it come up, because there aren't too many others. We do physical meetups, and we're starting to do virtual meetups as well.
Awesome. Now, I know, Kevin, you're going to, when we post this video in the Facebook group, Hypnotic Happenings, I know you're going to comment on the video with that link, because that's another reason why we did Hypnotic Happenings, is we want everybody that appears on this webinar series, we want them to be able to promote their classes. And also too, you'll notice as you go onto Hypnotic Happenings, the Facebook page, you'll see that others have posted conventions that are coming up. This is what it's all about. We don't want anybody to be on an island. We want people to be able to talk to each other and call each other up and say, hey, yeah, I saw this webinar one time with this guy, Kevin Merkin, talking about his rectum guy. And this happened to me. And so now I know who to call. I have a resource. I know who.
Great, now I have a niche.
Yeah, you have a niche. Yes, yeah. A niche.
And a niche.
You know what? I don't even, the jokes aren't even coming. I can't even, I'm trying to wrap my head around this and this whole rectum thing. And
we'll have to
I guess maybe I don't really want to.
We'll have to shoot part 2 with the jokes that we thought of later of rectal gnosis.
Yeah, well, and actually, so this is ironic though, because you are in Hypnotic Happenings part 2, which is 2. So yeah, you're not number 1. So how does it feel like being number 2?
I feel like I'm in the right place for my subject matter.
You're in the right place for your subject matter. That is right. That is right. So.
And if you're watching or listening to this any other place besides the Hypnotic Happenings Facebook group, if you're listening to this on YouTube or any place else, please go to Hypnotic Happenings Facebook group, comment, let people know who you are. Also, you can go to hypnotichappenings.com to get access to that group as well. So there's many different ways that you can watch this. We're posting this on our Expert Hypnosis Training YouTube page, on the Hypnotics Happening page. I'm sure we're going to make the group public again so that people can share the episodes if they're on, if they so choose. And you never know, this may go viral.
Viral, yes, viral. That's the word we're going to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will make it public again. We're on a moratorium. We can't make it public for about another week or so. We wanted to make sure we were doing the right thing by not mentioning client names and all that stuff, and keeping everybody's anonymity as far as our clients go. And then seeing that other doctors and other practitioners in the medical arts as well as the hypnotic arts have done similar things. So we are going to make the group public again, as Dan said, just as soon as Facebook will allow us to do that.
Yes.
But I don't know. Any last thoughts, Kevin? Any last thoughts you'd like to share with the group before we wrap this up?
I just want to thank you both for having me on here. You're both mentors to me. Michael, you were one of the trainers when I was learning stage in Vegas, and
Yeah.
Dan, I've known you for a long time and love you. You were one of my mentors, one of my coaches, and so I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I love being here with you guys, and I had a blast.
Kevin, what I just gotta say, you are one of the most gentlest, loving people I have ever met, and you are just such a teddy bear. And if you haven't, people who are listening, if you haven't had the pleasure to meet Kevin in person, you've got to attend one of his workshops. He presents at the National Guild of Hypnotists convention every year. I believe he also just submitted for HypnoThoughts Live 2020.
I did. I submitted two of them.
Congratulations.
Wow. Yeah, looking forward to having you come out here to Vegas. And I've always seen you at the NGH. And again, you've always been kind to me. And now I got to see a different side of you today. And so, or at least a different side of one of your clients today. And you knew it was going to happen sooner or later. So, but we do want to thank you. And Dan always has a tagline he wraps up with. And so I'm going to let him say that because I love this tagline. And then I have one too.
As always, it was a great pleasure having everybody on here and watching. As always, be well, do good, and be true to who you are.
And as I always say, remember, always have fun in life. And if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. We'll see you on the next episode of Hypnotic Happenings. Bye for now.